Welcome to day 46. Today we're going to be talking about Numbers chapter 7. We recently finished, or yesterday we finished the book of Exodus, which is a total of 40 chapters. It ended with the specific instructions of God on how to worship Him. God wants to dwell with His people, the Israelites, during their Exodus, migration from Egypt to Israel. So they carried the tabernacle with them, and there were very specific instructions on how to proceed with everything to approach a holy God. So I'll use my Rose Bible chart book again for this Numbers chapter 7. There's a lot of numbers in Numbers. No, that's a bad joke. Uh, when it talks about the offerings and stuff, it talks about how many goats, how many this, how many that, how many this, how many that. Um, so yeah, I'm glad that I have this book as a resource, the Rose Bible chart. If you want, it's in Amazon. It's a pretty cool resource. So chapter 7, offerings of the leaders. Here I'll be talking about the sacrifice. There were different offerings, many offerings: sin offering and guilt offering, which is mentioned in Leviticus chapters 4 to 6, Numbers as well. Sin offerings and guilt offerings focused on praying for sin. The sin offerings atoned for sins against God. The guilt offerings addressed sins against others and included paying damages with interest. Various animals were offered depending on the person's position and income. Priests and leaders, as examples to others, had to offer larger sacrifices for sin, while the poor offered what they could afford. Blood, that's a keyword, the blood was sprinkled on the altar. The parts of the animals were burned, often with wine poured on them as a drink offering. Other parts were roasted for the priests. Since the priests were full time tabernacle workers, sacrificed animals were their main source of food. So the priests were descendants of the Levites. Reuben, Simeon, Levi. Levi is the third son of Israel or Jacob, and they were separated to be priests. The meaning of this sin offering and guilt offering today is it shows Christ's offering, praying for damage. Here's the Bible verses correlating with that, praying for damages for the poor, leaders as examples in 1 Timothy 3, verse 1, and providing for Christian workers. Burnt offerings in Leviticus. The sacrifice represented complete dedication and surrender to God. The animal, usually an unblemished male, bears the worshipper's sins and dies in his or her place. After the blood was sprinkled on the altar, the animal was completely burned up. None of it was roasted for eating. The meaning of that today is surrender and dedication. The grain or meal offering is given to God in thankfulness. The people brought fine flour, unleavened cakes, or roasted grain to the priests. The priests burned a symbolic handful at the altar and could partake of the rest. There was very little ceremony involved. Meaning today is about our giving, praise, and thankfulness. Lastly, the fellowship or peace offering symbolizes fellowship and peace with God through shed blood. After some meat was ceremonially waved and given to the priests, worshippers, and their guests could share in the feast as a meal with God. Meaning to that today is God's peace and God's feast. So we did not really go away with the old things. It's just the reality became true in us, in our hearts, in our innermost being. Um, because we are the temple of the living God. When I visited a temple in Japan before, I was so amazed on how beautiful it was, and to us, for God to dwell in us, for the Father and Son to dwell in us, we keep our house clean as well. When you have a guest, my we try to keep it clean. Or my wife does actually. She does more than cleaning. And my other takeaway then to for us to have a clean temple or a house is found in Romans chapter 12, verses 1 to 2. It's called Living Sacrifices to God. This is one of the most popular Bible verses. Actually, it's what I'm wearing right now. Yeah. living sacrifices to God. I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable to God, which is your reasonable service. And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is the good and acceptable and perfect will of God. In other translation, it says that is your spiritual act of worship instead of saying reasonable service. I believe it was an NIV translation. Yeah, I believe so, which I actually like that translation better, um, because we easily mistaken worship for worship songs and being emotional and all that. But yeah, I think that's it for today. Uh, Thanks so much for your time. I truly appreciate you. My hope, my prayer is that you would seek God daily through reading the Bible, and please take very good care of yourself. Bye bye.